Let's bring Michael Myers from level 1 to 20 in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So let's highlight a few key features. We need to be pretty darn big, unreasonably strong, be able to take out our targets quickly, and be able to somehow catch up to those targets while walking. But I think we can do all of that. First things first, we gotta pick a race. Depending on the version of Halloween that you're watching, Michael Myers can go from a very normal-sized human to a hulkingly massive and scary creature. But we do way too many variant humans on this channel, so let's go ahead and lean into that big size by choosing a Goliath. There's actually two versions of this race, but they're basically the same, just with different naming conventions. So taking the version from Mordenkainen Presents Monsters of the Multiverse, you get the feature Little Giant, giving them proficiency in the athletic skill, and you count as one size larger when determining your carrying capacity, making it easier for you to push, drag, or lift things, even if that happens to be a humanoid body. The other notable feature is Stone's Endurance. So when you take damage, you can use your reaction to roll a d12. Add your Constitution modifier to that number, and you get to reduce the damage you would take by the total. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus before taking a long rest. Then when it comes to a background, you're always wearing a mask, so we're going to take the background faceless. This gives us skill proficiency in Deception and Intimidation, as well as the ability to use a disguise kit. Then when it comes to some starting stats, we're basically just going to dump all the mental stuff because we never even hear Michael Myers talk, and we're going to take our strength, dexterity, and constitution and bring them all to 15. Then we have the ability to increase each of those scores by one more point, bringing them all to 16 thanks to our racial bonus. Then when it comes to a starting class, we need to make sure you can take an unreasonable amount of hits and shrug off injuries that would absolutely decimate anybody else. So we're going to start with the class Barbarian. This gives us the most starting health out of any class in D&D. It gives us saving throws in strength and constitution, and we get to choose 2 skills. So we're going to take Perception, so you're aware of your surroundings, and Survival to help track your targets. Then at first level of Barbarian, you get Rage. So as a bonus action, you can go into a Rage as long as you aren't wearing heavy armor, which I wouldn't think that the jumpsuit you always wear would count as anything heavy. When you're in a Rage, you have advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws, so that unreasonable strength you have is already taken care of. Then when you make a melee weapon attack using strength, you can gain a bonus to the damage roll, which increases as you go up in Barbarian. Finally, the last thing you get while you're in a rage is resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, making you that much harder to take down. And since we are just basically wearing a jumpsuit, you might as well focus on that other feature you get from being a barbarian at first level, Unarmored Defense, making it so your armor class equals 10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your constitution modifier, bringing it to a very respectable 16 right off the bat. Then at second level of barbarian, you get Danger Sense, giving you advantage on dexterity saving throws against traps and spells that you can see. Additionally, at second level, you get Reckless Attack. So when you slowly walk towards your target, giving them every possible chance to hit you, you're so focused that it gives you advantage on attacking them. And then before we even jump into third level, which would give us a subclass, we're going to do a multi-class. And considering you basically just use one big dagger and take out every one of your targets with it, there's one other class that's very efficient at doing that, and that's gonna be a rogue. When you multi-class into rogue, you get to choose one additional skill from the rogue skill list, and despite you being massive, you somehow manage to sneak up on your enemies. So we're gonna take the skill Stealth. Then at first level of rogue, you get Expertise, allowing you to double your proficiency bonus in 2 skills of your choice. So we're gonna boost up that stealth that we just got and increase our athletics, because that's going to be what we use for grappling, and you can basically one arm hold up somebody in the air if you need to. So I'd say that's a pretty solid use of athletics. Additionally, at first level, you get Thieves' Cant, allowing you to understand special communication that only rogues can really get, but that doesn't really matter because you don't talk anyways. And then the final thing you get at first level is Sneak Attack. So whenever you have advantage on an attack roll, whether that's from stealth or even using your barbarian reckless attack, you can use Sneak Attack, adding a 1d6 to the damage for that attack once per turn. But Sneak Attack can also be used if there happens to be an enemy of your enemy within 5 feet of them. However, you're Michael Myers, you tend to go solo. The other requirement for Sneak Attack is that you're using a finesse weapon, but since you basically just use a massive knife, which we're going to count as a dagger, that happens to be a finesse weapon. Then at second level of rogue, you get Cunning Action. So now as a bonus action, you can take the dash, disengage, or hide action, all of which Michael Myers is very proficient at doing. especially the dash action, because the second your enemy is not looking at you, that's when you use the dash action, making it seem like you're just walking and somehow catching up to them, but in actuality, the second they look away, you run really fast. Then at 3rd level of Rogue, your sneak attack damage increases from a 1d6 to 2d6, and you get to choose a roguish archetype, otherwise known as a subclass. So we're gonna take Assassin. This gives us some bonus proficiencies with the Disguise kit, which we already had, and a Poisoner's kit, which we're never gonna use, but more importantly, it gives us the feature Assassinate. So you automatically have advantage on attack rolls against any creature that hasn't taken a turn in combat yet, and any hit you score against a creature that is surprised is automatically a critical hit. Then at 4th level of Rogue, you get an ability score improvement, and we want to focus on that strength, so let's go ahead and boost that by 2 points. Then instead of 5th level, let's jump back over to Barbarian, and when you hit 3rd level in Barbarian, you get to choose a Primal Path, otherwise known as a subclass. And there's not too many that fit outright, so we're going to take the Path of the Totem Warrior. This gives us the feature Totem Spirit, and while we could use this to make you resistant to more damage by taking the Totem Spirit of the Bear, which would make it so that way when you're raging you have resistance to all damage except for psychic damage. In the Halloween universe, magic isn't really a huge thing, and I like the idea that you can power walk even faster. So we're going to take the Totem Spirit of the Elk. This boosts our walking speed by 15 feet while you're raging, making our movement speed 45 feet. So when you take that dash action when they're not looking as your bonus action, it just looks like you somehow walked 90 feet in 6 seconds, which is the length of a single turn. Then at 4th level of Barbarian, you get an ability score improvement, so let's go ahead and max out that strength. Then at 5th level of Barbarian, you get extra attack, so now you can do more stabbing. Additionally, at 5th level, you get fast movement, so now you get 10 more feet of movement. So while you're raging, that brings you up to 55 feet of movement per movement used. So somehow you manage to power walk 110 feet in a single turn if you use that dash as your bonus action. Then we're gonna jump back over to Rogue, because at 5th level of Rogue, your sneak attack damage upgrades from 2d6 to 3d6, and you get the feature Uncanny Dodge. So now, no matter what your target is doing, whether they're fleeing or attacking you, you have something to do with your reaction, because if they try and run away, you go ahead and use your attack of opportunity. But if they decide to fight back, you use Uncanny Dodge, allowing you to cut any attack's damage in half. And remember, if you're raging and it's normal damage, you already get to cut it in half. So that means you're bringing it down to a quarter of the normal damage. Then at 6th level of Rogue, you get Expertise and 2 more skills. So we'll boost up our Intimidation, because you're pretty darn intimidating, and your Perception, so that way nobody can really hide from you anymore. Then at 7th level of Rogue, you get Evasion. So now if somebody tries to light an entire house on fire to try and take you out, requiring you to make a Dexterity saving throw, which remember, you have advantage on Dex saves thanks to your levels in Barbarian. If you succeed on that Dex save, you take 0 damage. And even if you fail, you only take half damage. Additionally, at 7th level, your sneak attack damage upgrades from 3d6 to 4d6. Then at 8th level of Rogue, you get another ability score improvement. And I was going to boost up some of our stats to help out our armor class, but usually just take the hits and keep on coming, and we have that pretty well covered. So we're gonna take a feat, and considering you're one of the most iconic slasher villains of all time, I was gonna take the feat Slasher. The only problem with that is that daggers don't do slashing damage, so we're just gonna take the variation of that for using daggers and take Piercer instead. This allows us to boost our dexterity score by 1 point, and once per turn when you hit a creature with an attack that deals piercing damage, you can re-roll one of the attack's damage dice, but you must use the new roll. And finally, when you score a critical hit that deals piercing damage to a creature, you can roll 1 additional damage die when determining the extra piercing damage the target takes. And a very notable part of this is that it doesn't specify that it has to be the weapons damage, because daggers only do a d4. So we can take one of the d6s that you get from your sneak attack damage and add that instead. Now let's do another class swap and jump back over to Barbarian. And at 6th level Barbarian, you get another feature from your Path of the Totem, granting you Aspect of the Beast. And we could grab the Bear's Totem for this part, which would boost our carrying capacity, but we already have that thanks to being a Goliath. So instead, we're going to grab the Aspect of the Wolf. This makes it so you can track other creatures while traveling at a fast pace, and you can move stealthily while traveling at a normal pace, making your power walking that much better. Then at 7th level of Barbarian, you get Feral Instinct, so you have advantage on your initiative rolls, which synergizes with your rogue assassin, because you get bonuses for taking your turn before anybody else. Additionally, Feral Instinct makes it so if you're surprised at the beginning of combat and aren't incapacitated, you can act normally on your first turn, but only if you enter a rage immediately. Then at 8th level of Barbarian, you get another ability score improvement, and we're going to make sure that you can survive that much more. So we're going to take the feat Tough, giving you an extra 2 hit points per level of this overall build. Then at 9th level of Barbarian, you get Brutal Critical. So now you can have one more die when you crit, but it can only be of the weapons type. So it's only an extra d4, but it still helps. Additionally, at this level, your rage damage increases from a +2 to a +3. Then at 10th level of Barbarian, you get another feature from your Totem Warrior called Spirit Walker. So you can commune with nature, which doesn't really feel like it fits Michael Myers that much, but you can say that you're doing this to help track your enemies, I guess. Then at 11th level of Barbarian, you get Relentless Rage, and this makes you even more indestructible, because if you drop to 0 hit points while you're raging, you can make a DC 10 Constitution saving throw, and if you succeed, you drop to 1 hit point instead. You can keep doing this, but the DC of that con save increases by 5 each time, and only resets when you take a short or long rest. And this is a great way to pretend that you've been taken out, but in actuality, you're just lying still for a second, and the moment people aren't looking at you, you run away really quickly. Then at 12th level of Barbarian and 20th level overall, you get 1 more ability score improvement. So let's go ahead and boost up our Constitution by 2 points, which will help our health as well as our armor class thanks to our unarmored defense. Let me know what you think about this build in the comments down below, especially if there's anything you do differently. This build came up second in a vote over on my Patreon, as I wanted to make sure I made my way through a few more horror villains in this Halloween season. If you want access to the character sheet for this build or any of my other builds, feel free to check out my Patreon linked in the description down below, where you can get access to that and vote on future builds, as well as any other random perks I can come up with. And I do have some especially awesome patrons like CGC 2014, Afstorm, Godzilla Khan, Elisa Martinez, Anthony McDonald, Panda Milkshake, Alistar Nix, Ted Z, Andrew Nobles, Carcat Kitsune, Zed13, Viral Naravar, Daniel Galvin, The Dino 21, Chris Moak, and Benjamin. Then there's the patrons I actually play D&D with: Shane Gilroy, Conman ZX, Cyberciety, Talon Starkey, Demiurge, Braden Aldridge, Eric Wade, Zalvador, Devin Happy, and Kilo Kilo. Then going above and beyond anything I ever expected is my god tier level patron GameSteak, so a special thank you to him. If you made it all the way to the end of this build, let me know by hitting that like button, and I'll be here hoping you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session, especially if you want to power walk when nobody's looking and play as Michael Myers in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition.